Hi, everybody. It's me, Mrs. Whitaker. This week's lesson is going to be about Veterans Day. Veterans Day was on Wednesday. It's every year on November 11th. We're going to talk about what a veteran is first, because some of us might not know. So, a veteran is a former member of the Armed Forces of the United States. That includes the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and Coast Guard, who served on active duty, both in war and peace times, and was discharged under conditions which were other than dishonorable. So, if you know somebody that served in the Army, like my husband, Mr. Whitaker, he was in the Army for 4 years. He did not serve in the Army when there was a war going on, but he is still considered a veteran. That's important. Some people don't understand that there is actually veterans that were not in a war, but they're still considered veterans. So I have some really nice pictures here. This top one, these are pictures of Army soldiers. This bottom one, these are Marines. Top one, this is some Air Force soldiers. Down here, these are Navy seamen. And these are Coast Guard members. And then this would be pictures of the National Guard. And that National Guard is something different than the Army. But typically it's the Army National Guard. And those guys aren't full-time soldiers. They just work part-time and help out when there's stuff going on, usually here in the United States, but sometimes they get sent other places. So that is what a veteran is. We're going to read this book here called America's White Table. It's by Margaret Thies Raven. It's a really great book. Those of you that are in school, I do have my white table set up right outside the library doors by the Bobcat wall. So let's read America's White Table today. Okay, we can see we got the little white table set up over here. It says, "It was just a little white table, but it brought tears of pride to my Uncle John's eyes the Veterans Day he came for dinner and stood by it, set for one person, even though nobody would be eating at it. It was just a little white table, but earlier that day, Mama told Gretchen, Samantha, and me the little table we were setting for Veterans Day was just like the ones that have stood across America in dining halls of the Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and Air Force since the Vietnam War ended." The tables honor the men and women who serve in America's armed forces, especially those missing in action, our MIAs, and those held prisoner of war, our POWs. It was just a little white table, but it felt as big as America when we helped Mama put each item on it, and she told us why it was so important. "We use a small table, girls," she explained first, "to show one soldier's lonely battle against many. We cover it with a white cloth to honor a soldier's pure heart when he answers his country's call to duty. We place a lemon slice and grains of salt on a plate to show a captive soldier's bitter fate and the tears of families waiting for loved ones to return," she continued. "We push an empty chair to the table for the missing soldiers who are not here." "We lay a black napkin for the sorrow of captivity and turn over a glass for a meal that won't be eaten," she said. "We place a white candle for peace and finally a red rose in a vase tied with a red ribbon for the hope that all our missing will return someday." Mama finished speaking just as sunlight spilled on the table and filled the overturned glass. It was just a little white table, but it suddenly made me want to burst with a feeling I couldn't explain when Mama told us how much setting the white table would mean to Uncle John that night. Then she told us something we didn't know. Our Uncle John, who gives us big bear hugs and spun us with airplane twirls and called me his Katie girl, was a POW in Vietnam before we were born. It was just a little white table, but it gave us the courage to ask Mama what happened to Uncle John in Vietnam, and she quietly told us his story. When Uncle John When Uncle John served in Vietnam, he was sent on a rescue mission and his helicopter was shot down behind enemy lines, she began. And he and 3 of his crew members were taken prisoner. One crew member named Mike had serious wounds from the crash, but Uncle John and the other men tried to help Mike get better and persuaded a guard to bring Mike some medicine. Then one day when a guard looked away, Uncle John and the others had a chance to escape, but Mike was still too sick to go, so Uncle John stayed behind because he wouldn't leave a fellow soldier alone so far from home. But how did Uncle John get free, we asked Mama. Sometime later, Uncle John had a chance to escape again, and somehow he was able to take Mike with him, carrying him on his back and collecting just enough rainwater in the big leaves to keep them alive until Uncle John found an American infantry unit to help them. But even though Uncle John did everything he could to bring Mike home alive, Mike's wounds were just too serious, and he died before the rescue helicopter landed. I know that Mike was only 20 years old and he dreamed of playing football, but he loved America enough to give his life for his country when duty called. And I know how much Uncle John loves America, too, but he learned when helping Mike that a soldier risks his life for a fellow soldier because the best of your country lives in every man and woman who would lay down their life for you, too. It was just a little white table, but it needed words of gratitude like Mama's Thanksgiving meal. So before Uncle John arrived for dinner, Gretchen and Samantha and I decided to put 3 gifts of our own on the table to honor our veterans. Gretchen colored pictures of all the objects on the table, and Samantha wrote out the words of My Country 'Tis of Thee as a tribute in song. But I didn't know what I, a little 10-year-old girl, could ever put on that table that was as important as each veteran's gift of freedom to me. It was just a little white table, but I looked at it all dinner long, and in the quiet inside me I could almost hear the silent soldiers of the empty chair saying, "Remember us, please. We are real people like your Uncle John and Mike, who left families and friends and homes and dreams of our own to protect your birthright of liberty from disappearing as easily as sunlight from a glass." It was just a little white table, but it took my words away when I hugged Uncle John goodnight and wanted to thank him for serving our country so bravely. So I just hugged him even harder and told him I loved him. Uncle John hugged me back even harder than I hugged him. And that's when I knew what I could put on the table. My promise to put the words from my heart into a little book about America's white table. And in the book, I'd use Gretchen's pictures and Samantha's song and Mama's story about Uncle John and his friend Mike because I hoped that everyone who read it would set a white table on Veterans Day too, so the brave Americans the little table honors won't ever feel forgotten by the country that they loved so much. Then in salt, on the little white table, I traced in the grains of the family's tears what each man and woman who serves America is to me, a hero. And that's when I saw the tears of pride fill my Uncle John's eyes. Okay, this is a long part of the book. I'm not going to read it right now. For those of you that are in school, you are welcome to check this out. It is a library book. What I will do is I'll take a picture of this and I will post it on my Seesaw. So if you'd like to read this on your own, if you're at home, you totally can do that. The second part of your assignment today for Veterans Day, I want you to talk to a family member. Could be mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or maybe a cousin, or maybe you have somebody like Uncle John in your family, and ask them if you know anybody that is a veteran. Maybe your grandpa is, maybe your dad or your brother or your mom is. And you just let me know, like, who do you know that's a veteran? And how could you say thank you to them and let them know that they're important to us and that we have a lot of respect for our soldiers that serve in all of our armed forces. The second part of your assignment is what questions would you have for a veteran? Mr. Whitaker has agreed to help us out with this, so if you have a question about serving in the Army or being in the military or what made him make that decision, you can send that question back, and you can either write it down or you can send a video. I'm going to put these instructions, I'm going to write out the instructions as well so that you can see what's going on if you can't remember what the questions are from the video. So those will be on this assignment coming up. I look forward to finding out about your families, and I look forward to reading all your questions about being in the armed forces. So have a great weekend. I will see some of you guys next week, and if not, remember, Mrs. Whitaker loves you, and I can't wait to talk to you guys. See you soon. Bye.